Now, this is an interesting article. So, I thought I would take a look at this. The article says, our brains can understand written sentences in the blink of an eye, study reveals. Now, language processing happens at speeds significantly faster than it takes to speak one word aloud. I've talked about this in some of my other videos, and the idea is, and this is so important when we talk about AI, because, people say, like, well, why do we need AI, right? And the thing is, I wish people would understand that if you learn how to read, if you learn how to speak, nobody uses AI to speak, right? If people would learn the skill of writing, you wouldn't need AI. And this article actually articulates what I'm trying to say, which is you would be faster than the AI. Like, I'm saying a writer, like, yeah, how long does it take for the AI? Okay, an AI can write, maybe in 2 seconds, an article, right? But the thing is, it doesn't think, and you would still have to proofread it a lot. But somebody who knows how to write can write. So let's say an AI could write a 5,000 page, which is a lot, by the way. Or let's just put it down, maybe 3,000, right? 3,000, that's pretty modest, right? That might take a few hours, depending on how complex. That might take a normal person 2 hours to write, maybe 3 hours, depending on how complex it is. But you would write it perfectly. In other words, it comes quickly when you know how to do it. And I wish that people would take the time to learn how to write the same way that you learn how to speak, right? Like, I'm speaking right now, right? I don't have a script. Sometimes I use scripts, but this time I'm not using a script. So you might say, well, how are these words coming out of my mouth? Because I already know how to talk, and my mind is able to think quicker than I can, or I should say, my mouth is able to speak quicker than my mind can think. And you can learn to write quicker than your mind can do it. So that means you don't need AI. AI is like, it's just not needed. Like, an expert is actually faster than AI and probably more accurate and more relevant. Because that's the other thing about AI, is that they'll always throw something else at you because it doesn't know exactly what you're looking for. Whereas at least somebody who is cognizant and aware of what you're looking for, they can be more targeted. So let's just read through this and let's see. Human brains. Okay, so I'm reading from the article. Human brains can discern the basic structures of written language from a single glance, enabling us to quickly consume the torrent of information fed to us by smartphones, a new study finds. Now, this is interesting that they're, I guess, going for the smartphone, because I don't know if I would want to, the smartphone. It's not exactly, I don't really call it, I mean, it's obviously mentally stimulating. And I've also talked about this too in other videos, where the brain thinks everything is important. So if you watch, reading this art, if you're reading, like, if you're watching TikTok, if you're watching a YouTube video, if you're watching even something that's nonsensical or something that's very simplistic, your brain still thinks that it's important, and it gives it the same level of effort. So, but at the same time, it's interesting that the brain, it's able to do it quickly, but it's also, it's actually very taxing. Like, I disagree, because they make it sound like it's not, it's like it's something that is effortless, but it's not. I disagree with that. I think it is full of effort and energy, and it actually, you're wasting time, man, because that's time you could have spent doing something that is more targeted to you, or that applies to you better in your life, instead of just reading something that's just given to you. So anyway, let's continue on. So this means that people can process words as quickly as we comprehend visual scenes, a skill that enables us to continually observe and navigate the world around us. The new finding, published Wednesday, October 23rd, in the journal Science Advances, could help reveal key clues about how our brain... So, here's the thing. This is similar to what I said, but I disagree. There's a few things that I disagree with, because even though people can process language as long as they can read it, right? It's pretty fast how most of us, we have kind of, just as we have hand-eye coordination, we have kind of mind-eye coordination when it comes to reading, right? But there is sort of an advanced version of this, because, for example, that we can comprehend words, but that's true. But can you comprehend sentences as quickly? Some people can read very fast. I know people who can read very fast, and it is a skill. And that's not, I would say, just as writing is a skill that most people have, reading is not a skill that most people have, believe it or not. Being able to, I guess some people call it speed read. Now, speed reading, that's a whole other topic. I can make a video about that. But that's a different skill altogether. And I think this article is not really talking about that, but it is relevant, because speed reading is something that people can do. I don't think this article is talking about speed reading, because most people can't do that. But I know some people who can read very fast, and these are people who are professionals, who have been reading. Usually, when I ask their history, they have read all their lives, and it's just their eyes are just able to move, and they can see and they can process everything quicker. I am not as fast of a reader. That doesn't mean I don't like reading, but I'm just saying that is a skill that different people can do. And I'm not even saying that, I don't know if I would say that it's important either, to be honest with you. Like, it's not essential for everyone to read, just like it's not essential for people to write. But it's still something interesting that I think what this article is trying to say is, when it comes to reading simple things and small texts like TikTok, because that's what it's talking about here, that somehow, that is true when it comes, if you're reading just simple texts, it's pretty fast how our mind can process it. But, I would argue it's so simple and inane that it doesn't matter. Like, I would say it's kind of a waste of time. And you really need to be careful. I've talked about this before. I have another video. It shows, it's called, what is it? Everything, your brain thinks everything is important. It's something like that. And it's on my channel. And basically, your brain thinks everything is important. So why would you waste time? That's why I should probably make I guess what I'm trying to say is, what that means is that you need to stop wasting time. Like, just stay away from anything that you think is not important, right? Because everything's trying to get your attention. So you have to choose in life what direction you want to go in, and avoid, don't even look at it. Don't even, because your mind will interpret whatever you put in front of it. It will be treated the same. So if you're reading nonsense, or if you're reading something that's not that important or not that insightful, then that's what's going to be in your mind. Studying how the brain, so let's read again. Studying how the brain processes written messages enables scientists to understand more about the properties of language, particularly those properties that are not linked to speech. Leena Pilkinen, a professor of linguistics and psychology at New York University, told Live Science. So, studying the neurobiology of language is often made by the mouth, in that it forces us to turn the language into a sequence of brain activity in order to speak words aloud. Pilkinen said this restricts our understanding of language's properties to those demanded by the word-by-word serialization needed for speech. Now, that's interesting, because I guess now here they're talking about our speaking. Actually, this is like a different skill, because reading is different from speaking, right? You're not using your mouth when you're reading, unless you're mouthing out the words, which that would be very slow if you did that. But people who can read fast, And I would say most people, they don't have to mouth out the words that when you're reading it. But anyway, nevertheless, it's very interesting. That's a whole other topic too, because sometimes in your mind you might think you want to talk and you want to say something, but the issue is that can be, it slows you down, obviously, because your mouth can only move so quickly, and your mind, just as this article says, goes way faster than how your mouth can move. It's kind of like, have you ever thought about something and you imagine yourself flying or doing things, and you just move way faster? Like if I sit here and imagine myself sweeping the floor, that doesn't take as much effort. But to actually do it, it's a slower process, right? It's different. You can't just sit and think about something and then, although you could practice it, once you've done it, you can actually practice, believe it or not. Your mind can practice the muscles once you've done it. But if you've never done it, you can't. So that's actually another topic too, because you can, I guess contradicting, I'm not really contradicting myself, but I'm explaining another thing, which is that if you know how to do something, you can actually, and I know this sounds weird, you can practice doing, like if you play tennis and you do a certain movement, you can actually practice those movements without actually doing it. And just kind of, I don't know how to explain it, kind of practice your neurons and the nerves without actually doing it. So, and they've talked about this before. This concept, when you're dreaming, for example, that's how you remember things. That's how you practice. So you actually practice and get better during your sleep, because your brain is, even though you're not doing the activity, it's kind of reinforcing the what is it? Is it the nerves? Yeah, the nerves, the muscles, the neural network, the network that connects to your muscle, your brain to the muscle. I think the way it works is that it improves it, at least, and that's just based on what my observation, of course. But so studying the neurobiology. Okay, I read that. So the thing is, to sidestep this issue, the researchers used a non-invasive technique called magnetoencephalography, which uses magnetic fields to track electrical activity in the brain. While being scanned, volunteers were presented with a 3-word sentence structure that flashed onto a screen for 300 milliseconds, followed by a second set of words that was either left the same or altered by one word. The participants' task was to assess whether the second sentence was the same as the first or had been changed. Now, that's pretty simple. I don't know if I would say that I don't know. That seems a little simple to me. I don't know if that's meaningful. I mean, it's a little too easy, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, there's just so much. You're not really thinking or analyzing anything when you're doing that. It's just a simple, ABC. And, I'm a little it's just weird to me how our education system has turned into something so simplistic. Just learn this fact, ABC, without actually asking people to think for themselves, without asking people to think critically. Think critically means being able to analyze and understand something and go against it or try to come up with something different. I don't know why, for some reason, our education has turned into something so simplistic as pattern finding, because that's basically what this experiment is. It's just, well, there's 3 words, now we're going to change one thing. It's like playing that game with, you don't even need words to do this. You could, like, pictures, right? With those pictures, okay, find what's different. And it's like, it's just so weird. It's so simplistic. It's like, Candy Crush, the game where all you have to do is just look around and swipe over the little blocks. And it's like, it's just so simple. That's not, games could be so much more complex. Things can be so much more complex than that. And it's just a little weird to me that's, I don't know. Like, we humanity could do so much better than that. It's so simple, to be honest with you. Almost to the point where I don't think it's worth doing. It's too easy, actually. That's something that a baby could do, literally. That's something that a very young person could do. So, not really something. Humans could do so much more than that. So let's see. This rapid detection was also seen for sentences that contained agreement errors in which the verb doesn't match the pluralization of the subject. For example, nurses cleans wounds. Okay, that sounds a little weird. The brain also quickly detected implausible sentences such as wounds cleaned nurses. I mean, maybe a wound can clean nurses. I don't know. Well, okay, maybe not. Well, I don't know. You can always find some way to interpret, to interpret that. That's something creative. I mean, maybe wound, can be interpreted as, something that is very difficult, or something that something that's difficult, and it heals the nurses, so maybe there's a more metaphorical, more symbolic meaning to that term, if you want to get creative. See, and this is how humans can be creative if we use it. That's where we want to get people going. That's where we want students to go. So the researchers said this suggests that our brains aren't just detecting the presence of the words, but are applying our previous knowledge of the world to better parse what the sentences mean right away. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we are a product of what we are exposed to. So that could be it. But I would like to think that you can also come up with new things on your own. And that's what I want people to do. So just like your own car is quickly identifiable in a parking lot, certain language structures are quickly identifiable and can then give rise to a rapid effect of syntax in the brain. Okay, so this is, another way of saying this is that that your brain can quickly understand language, and that's not surprising. But I think, again, this is a little oversimplistic. Not, we should be doing way more than this. I would expect people to do more. Like, it's just like learning language, right? Like, this is why we really don't need AI, right? Because we don't need AI to speak, and speak is if somebody can speak, to think about the Star Wars, The Phantom Menace, Episode 1 quote, okay, by Qui-Gon Jinn, he says to Jar Jar Binks, like, hey, what does he say to him? He says, the ability to speak does not make you intelligent. And I would disagree with that. As much as I like Qui-Gon Jinn, who he's a great character as Star Wars, but I would disagree with him, because you know what? The ability to speak does make you intelligent. It absolutely makes you intelligent. And in fact, it's probably one of the more complex things we do. And yet, in some ways, language is pretty simple, but the way in which the rules and the grammar that we automatically do, it's pretty complex when you think about it. And it shows you how our mind is able to become an expert at that. And that's why I'm saying, if we became experts at writing, you wouldn't need AI. Now, AI is still important, of course, because I'm never going to be an artist. Okay, so I can't draw. So it's useful, if I want to make a quick sketch or picture, okay, that's pretty cool. That's a useful skill for me to use AI for. And then maybe somebody who doesn't know how to write, maybe might want to use AI to write something up. So that's true, but that still doesn't mean that the human mind cannot do it and cannot become an expert at it. And I still want artists to be out there, because an artist will be able to create exactly what they want to create. Likewise, a writer is going to be able to write whatever they want to write. So I still think there is value in learning how to do these things, and then you won't ever need to use. If you're a writer, you don't need AI to write for you anymore, because you're going to be precise. You're going to be able to do it quick, just like this. And that's kind of what I wanted to get at with this, because I kind of interpret this as saying that, our brains are capable of they're capable of learning. They're capable of doing complex things, and really what it boils down to is, our brains understand they understand sentences, they understand language, and but why is it able to do that? The reason why is because it's an expert at that. And if you become an expert at writing, or you become an expert at anything, at drawing or whatever it is, then you will be at the blink of an eye doing it. And that's, or you want to learn how to write music or whatever. Now, do you have to do that? No. You don't need it, to be honest with you. And I think most people probably don't want to or need to. And maybe, maybe that's true. Like, I'm not trying to convince people to do one thing or another. But I'm just saying that it's a possibility. In fact, you don't even have to be an expert speaker. There's a lot of people who they're not very articulate at all. They can't talk. They can barely talk. They can barely, and I'm sure there are people out there who are illiterate, who maybe they can't read at all or they can't speak very well either. Do you need that to survive? Probably not. It's amazing to see how the mind adapts to whatever you do. So even if you choose not to do that, you could be, I know people who can barely talk, who can't even speak a language that, in a country they live in, right? There's so many people who live in different countries, you might not understand the other language. So that's a perfect example of how people are not, they're different languages, they're different, so they, you might not even need to understand or even speak language at all to be successful. And so no matter what you do, I just hope that you're able to learn and to grow in whatever works for you. So anyway, this was an interesting article. Let me see if there's anything else that might be interesting.